All right. So I will say hello and welcome back to another episode of All About Balance. And today I am joined by tattoo artist Luke Edgar. Luke, how's it going, my friend?
Good. Thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely. So for the people that are watching, you will see that Luke is in a beautiful setting, actually, a beautiful setting in his back garden. Why the back garden, first of all?
Well, I was saying I spend a lot of time indoors, so it's nice to actually be outside. I've had a day off today, which is quite rare. So I'm
Yeah.
normally tattooing or I'm in the studio doing artwork. So I've kind of my girlfriend's made me have a day off today, which is always good. I have to be forced to do it normally. So
And what does a day off look like for you? What does that entail, or not entail?
um, well, today really haven't done a lot, which is lovely. Just kind of gone, had a little bit of breakfast, had a walkabout. You know, walk around where we live and stuff like that, which has actually been really cool. Like since the lockdown, like we've just moved here end of last year, and it was
Right.
the sort of thing that I had no idea where we lived. And then after getting locked down, it was that thing of like, okay, we actually go and walk around, explore where we live and stuff like that. So that's actually been really cool. So a little bit
Beautiful.
more of that today. Yeah.
And whereabouts are you in the world?
We're in Manningtree in Essex,
Okay.
so it's kind of right on the border of Suffolk. That's where we
Nice.
are, yeah.
Very
So
nice.
right
And
out, right out in the sticks.
for people that don't know, the tattoo studio you work for is Immortal Ink, right? And
Yeah,
whereabouts is that?
that's in Chelmsford in Essex.
Perfect.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
first plug of the podcast is if you're looking for
That's
somewhere,
it. Yeah, to Immortal
Immortal,
Ink.
yeah, in
Yeah,
Chelmsford, yeah. So yeah, I mean, there seems to be a common trait with tattoo artists I've found from the couple that I've spoken to and worked with, and that's that they just work non-stop. Why do you work non-stop?
I don't know. It gets like that. I've kind of, the last couple of years, I've changed the way that I do everything. So I was tattooing full time, and then now I've got an art studio as well.
Hmm.
So I do a week of tattooing and then a week in my studio.
Okay.
And do a week on, a week off in that way. And I'm kind of, I love that thing of like, all I want to do is create, but as many different things as possible. And I think I love tattooing, but I end up just doing that one thing.
Hmm.
And it's kind of, and only working on other things of an evening or weekends and trying to fit it in. So I felt like I was only doing other artwork when I was tired, which
Yeah,
isn't
sure.
good. So I was like, right, I just need to separate a big block of time and just work on that. So it's been the best thing I've ever done. I love it. And even changing next year as well. I'm gonna be working 1 week in Immortal Ink and then 1 week in another studio in Ipswich as well. So just to try
Beautiful.
and mix things up. It's nice if every week is different as well, right?
100%. It's different challenges
Yeah,
and different scenarios and that sort of stuff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's something that I am vastly, because I find creative people specifically, but even more granular than that, like tattoo artists are incredibly interesting people, right? Because, and the first question I'm going to ask is why tattooing? Like why tattooing?
I don't know. It's been one of them things of like when I was. I've always drawn. My dad's an architect and kind of was brought up like I could probably draw before I could write. It was
Sure.
one of them things. It was just he was teaching me all that kind of stuff. But yeah, when I was a kid, I got from Argos a little tattoo machine thing. You draw on the thing and it prints out, and then I just cover everyone in all them tattoos. I
Okay.
think from then that was it. The only people in my family that had tattoos was like my uncle, my dad's brother, and his son, my cousin. So I remember seeing them and just thinking like, you can have any drawing you want on your body, like almost like it couldn't be real because if it was, literally everybody would have that, and obviously now they do pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it just feels like if that's an option, if that's an option, how would you not do that?
Yeah. I mean,
um,
I think that's kind of beautiful, and that's one of the more original versions of a route into tattooing that I've ever heard. Like a lot of I know a tattoo artist that came into tattooing via the circus, right? Like decided to rebel at
it's
16
nuts, isn't
from
it?
their decided to rebel from at 16 from their hometown, moved to ran away to the circus and then got into tattooing that way. Like just some fucking crazy stories. But that's kind of I should put it lightly, like about as sane way as I've heard of somebody getting into
That's a
tattooing.
great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think for me, it's like if you're an artist, how would you not want to tattoo people? I
right.
kind of view it in that way, you know, because
That's
I've
so
done, you
interesting.
know, over the last couple of years, I've done a few gallery shows and things like that,
Hmm.
and you always get a weird reaction when people see that you're a tattoo artist as well. You know, when you're, you know, people that you tattoo, to them it's obvious that you do other artwork,
Hmm.
but when you see someone in a gallery setting and then they find out you tattoo, it's almost like a whoa, why'd you do that? You know, like what's the thing on that? And it's like, fuck, man. You know, if you're going to buy a piece of my artwork, that's amazing. That's really cool. You know, and put up on your wall. But then if it's like you're going to give me an arm. You know, you're going to give me a limb, and I'm going to be able to do this on you, and you're going to carry it for the rest of your life. It's kind of, I don't think there's a bigger compliment than that, really, is there? So for
Yeah,
me, that's
I couldn't
massive.
agree more. I couldn't agree more. I think there's something that, and maybe this is a topic that I have to tread really carefully with a lot of people. But let's flesh it out and see where we get to. Like, I have really sort of strict opinions about tattoos, and for myself specifically.
Mm.
But you just touched on one of the biggest things I think that deters like two different types of tattoo. One, as you just said, is let's say I come to you and I'm like, here's an arm, do something, right? And obviously we probably work together on some form of process. Like, I think it's another level for somebody to just give somebody an arm and be like, do whatever you want, right? Like the creative freedom thing. That's like, Jesus, that's yeah, that's a serious level. But there's something so intrinsically intimate about working with a tattoo artist that they're going to put blood, sweat, and tears and probably 5 to 10 years of experience into a couple of hours while you're sat in a chair and you're going through blood, sweat, and tears sometimes in that same chair to actualize an idea with somebody that you've put this faith in, this trust in. And there's just something that's so, as you say, there's not a bigger compliment than that to give the artist. And equally, I think the artist putting their all into the work and you being returned with a piece that you love and actually represents the idea you have is the biggest compliment you can give to a guest as well, right? Like a customer.
Mm.
And I find that in some areas there are tattoo artists that don't have that mentality, right? And there are people getting tattoos that don't have that mentality. And
Definitely.
I fucking hate that, frankly.
Me too.
Like
It's hard, isn't it?
it is hard because people should be free to do
Mm.
whatever they want, right? People should be, look, if people want to get tattooed by somebody that doesn't care about what they're tattooing, and equally, if you want to just walk into a shop, look at someone on the wall and be like, I want that, you should be able to do that.
Hmm.
I just don't agree with it.
Hmm. I get where you're coming from. It's this thing of kind of, I find it difficult sometimes of like when I take on a new, you know, meet a new person, take on a project with them, it can be this thing of, you know, as you said, it's like someone gives you this limb and it's kind
Yes.
of, and some people are really open because they've seen your work before and they can be like, I literally just want to be tattooed by you,
Yep.
whatever kind of, whatever you're thinking, whatever you want to, you want to push your work. And it's like, you're so lucky to have people like that. But it does kind of feel like if I've tattooed you for a long time, or I already know you, I immediately know, right, this piece is for you. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like you can
Yes.
draw something, and I know kind of pretty much most of the time before you've seen it, I feel like you're gonna like this. You know, I feel like it's gonna suit you. Um, but when you're going in and it's like I don't even know this guy, like, I try and get as much information as you can from somebody, but you can't really without spending a lot of time with them. You know,
Yeah.
um, I feel like I get to the people I tattoo probably more than anybody that I actually know, more than like a lot of friends even know, because it's like if I'm doing a sleeve on you, we'll be working on that pretty much. Like if you're in solid every few weeks, every month, that's like a year's worth of, you know, and we're sitting with each other for 6 or 7 hours a day,
Yeah.
once a month. That's kind of, you get to know someone pretty well like that. And then when you take on next projects, it becomes easier and easier. But you know, I've been talking to a lot of people recently saying it almost feels like you need to just hang out with a person for a week or so
Yeah.
before I tattoo you. I know that I don't know how you could actually do that, but
It would
It
be
feels like that would
costly.
be the best way of doing it. It would
It
be
would be
costly, but
costly.
it feels definitely it feels like we at least need to go out for a coffee or something and sit
Yeah,
together for a little while, you know,
I
so I
think
can
so.
see who you are. You can see you might not like me. Do you know what I mean? Because I think there's that thing of whether you like it or not. I'm attached to that tattoo forever. You're gonna at least be remembering me. So
Yeah.
if I come off like an arsehole straight away, you probably don't want me to tattoo you, you know,
Yeah.
and vice versa, right?
Absolutely, and there's
Um,
something that's something that's so good as well. That's so, oh man, I can, yeah, this is going to be fucking great. It's like, you know, there's that client and tattoo artist relationship, right? And if you go in and you don't, because look, a lot of tattooing now, the shop windows are Instagram, right? The things you
mm,
post on Instagram is your shop window effectively.
hmm
I don't know what the rate of people that find out about tattoo artists from magazines and word of mouth and whatever is now in comparison to Instagram, but I suspect there's a real disparity. But if somebody looks at your Instagram, they're going to get an idea of the work that you do, but really no idea about the person that you are. So yeah,
yeah,
coming and
exactly.
sitting with you and being like, hey, this is my idea. And sometimes people just don't gel, they don't mix, right? And yeah, you can't, there's as I said, there's something so intrinsically important and something so intimate about somebody putting ink into your skin for 6 to 7 hours a day for X amount of time a week or whatever it is,
hmm
that there's a bond there. And you say, you know some people better than you know your friends. I don't fucking doubt it. I really don't.
Yeah, yeah,
Because you're branding this person, right? And they're
yeah.
actually allowing you to do that, right? It's not
I know.
forced or anything.
It's crazy. Like we talk about it all the time. Like when I'm tattooing people, I'm like, fucking nuts is this? What I'm doing on you? Like you've come in, don't know each other, and I'm drawing all over you. You're complete. Like I do think that tattoos are a thing that they're not necessarily for everybody as well. You know, like
No.
if you're a control freak, that is not for you,
Mm.
because or maybe it is for you, but it's not for you right now. You know, you need to kind of, because you have to really, you're giving yourself up to someone completely, and just you have to have complete trust. You know, I think it's
Absolutely.
one of them things. If you feel like you need to guide the direction of this too much and push a person in this way, then you know, as a client, maybe that's the wrong artist for you, or you know, or you should have a think. To
I
me,
agree.
it should flow naturally.
I agree. And I think that sentence there of the client should have a think is something that's really important as well, actually.
hmm
Because something that I try and do as much as possible is before I even look for an artist, I'll have an idea, whatever that idea is. And I'll try and sit with it for the longest time. Because if my idea changes, then to me, I'm not ready to have it. Right. If I
Exactly.
have an idea and it's static in my mind for a year, let's say, then I'm like, okay, cool, let's try and find an artist that can realize that idea. Um, but yeah, I find that a lot of time people will, because for instance, if you go and look at your Instagram, and I'll tag you multiple times throughout the video, like you'll see you have a very specific style of tattooing, right? An
hmm
extremely specific style, and we'll get onto that in a little bit. But somebody may look at your work and be like, this is great, this is what I want. And then they get there and just the whole aura or their idea doesn't fit into your style, but they want you to do that style, but it's not really what you do. And then there's sort of this weird juxtaposition of who bends, right? Who bends. And
Yeah.
most of the time the client has to bend, right? Because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is a poor result in a tattoo, and
hmm
at the end of the day, you don't want to be covering or getting rid of tattoos, right? But yeah, the client thought I think is huge, is absolutely huge.
Yeah, definitely. And I think conversation is the most important thing in tattooing, you know. And I think one of the things I've noticed more from in the last couple of years of splitting my time up between, you know, having a week in between tattoo, like I tattoo solid for a week, around six, like sort of normally 6 days in a row, and then you know, I have the rest of the time to just work on artwork. Is it doesn't become normal to me anymore,
Yeah.
which I think is important. You know, if it's your day in day out thing, it's like it becomes not a big deal that I'm permanently putting this on you. You know, and it definitely does as well. You know, it felt way more normal that I'd wake up in the morning, okay, cool, I'm doing, like, not that I wasn't loving it, I wasn't excited, but it would be like, yeah, I'm doing a tattoo on you. Now it's like, okay, I spend this whole week now of just working on all crazy shit that I'd never attempt to put on a person, because it really doesn't matter, you know, what I'm working on a piece of metal or a painting or whatever. But then, right, okay, this is the week for tattooing. This is the stuff that I know, um, you know, I've had my experimentation outside of tattooing, and I can bring it into it. You can still, you know, you can still experiment, but it's a safer, you know, we've already had our main experiment before, but I feel like this will work, you know. But yeah, I think that's an important side of it not becoming your norm, that it's all you do. And then when a person, you know, I've seen it before where a person doesn't like a design by an artist or something, and you get really arsy with them, like, man, you don't like the design. It's like, yeah, it's on this person's body. If they don't like it, they don't like it, do they? You know. But I think having a conversation is the most important thing. Make sure everybody's comfortable in the situation, right?
And how do you frame that? Because there's such depth to what you've just said, really. Like, you've covered so many things in that bit of sentence. And it's that, you know, the first thing is, you're absolutely right. Normality creeps into all human life. Adaptation becomes so easy when it, you know, for instance, like you've just said, you're going to work every day, 6 days a week, and somebody's going to be there with a little bit of money, and they're going to say, please put some ink in my skin. And to you, after a while, it becomes artwork, it becomes work, right? And it's just the same thing of, okay, design, consultation, stencil, artwork, fuck off, next one in. And like you say, that is what it is, right? At a very procedural, basic, functional, bit by bit level, but there's more to it than that. And I think it's kind of interesting that there's almost, it feels like there's like two brains to you, right? Two minds, two Lukes. One is a person that smashes shit into metal just because, right? And the other is a more calm, calculated, and thoughtful. But that's not me taking anything away from the artwork you do for yourself. Like, you know, there's a Luke that has to take people in, right? And have somebody live inside you like you are living inside of them. How do you wrestle with those people?
Well, it is difficult, isn't it? I think you need them people though, right? You need them people inside you for that to happen. But, you know, I think of it in a similar way of like, where there's one side of me that wants to do all this crazy stuff, and then it's like you're pulling it back. I think of it in the same way as, say, obviously you're a jiu-jitsu guy, so I'm sure we'll get into that. But it's like only competing. That's what I think of it with tattooing. It's like you don't do any training or any drilling, you just compete. And it's like, that cannot, like, you're going to stagnate so much without any of the experimentation in the drilling side, in the sparring side, in like the, you know, positional sparring. You need all that side of it as a base first, and to push and to get tapped in all these weird positions to figure things out. And then you go into competitions, cool, okay, I know this is my game, you know. I think it's a similar kind of thing with tattooing, or with anything, you know. But yeah, it's been a massive change, me doing this. I think it's been important. It's been important on my kind of mental well-being as well, and like kind of, I like getting a bit nervous for a tattoo as well. You know, maybe nervous is the wrong word, but you wake up and it feels like a responsibility every morning in that week. You know, where I was definitely felt like I lost that a little.
Yeah, and I mean that's so fucking interesting. It's you know, nervousness is probably the right word. Now, clients aren't going to like their tattoo artist is nervous, right? But it's not nervous. I mean, maybe you can clarify if I'm speaking out of turn, but it doesn't sound like it's nervous to to be an artist. It's nervous for, okay, this person's going to live with this for the rest of their life. Let's make sure it's right. You know, it's the same, as you say, it's very similar to competition day. It's very similar to anything that you care about, right? There's always a little bit of nerves in there because you care about it, right? You want to do it well. You want to do it right. And it's nerves for the other person. It's nerves for you, because this is something that, I mean, how long have you been tattooing for?
About 6 years.
Right. So that's, and you've been an artist essentially your entire life, right? So, you know, you're putting in, that nervousness is trying to pay homage to everything that's gone before you, right? Yeah, I get that. I get that 100%.
Yeah,
I
and
get
I
that.
love it. I love that side of it. You know, um, I see so many people that haven't got that. You know, and I think,
Mm.
fuck, it's the same thing as like if you go to the hospital for something. You know, it's obviously not everybody, but a lot of the time it would be you see people. So we go up to Moorfields Eye Hospital a lot. My dad's got some issues with his eyes and stuff,
Okay.
and it's a real good people watching place, you
Oh
know.
God, yeah, I
So
bet.
we spend a lot of time in there, and you see some people that are really panicked, obviously because it's their eyes, and you can basically say, okay, that's their first time here, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, when it's eyes as well, people freak out, and you see some of the like most of the doctors there are amazing, but every now and then you see someone that they're so used to being there, and it's their normal thing, like, you know, this is what I do day in, day out. I test your vision. I do this. I test, you know, I test your pressures, and it becomes so normal. But this person's freaking out, and they're just so far each other's levels, you know. And I feel like you kind of got to close that gap a little bit, right? You've got to
Yeah,
understand where the other person's coming from.
for sure. Absolutely. And
And
I
I don't
think
know the best way of doing that, but there's something.
for sure, because there's a thing that people get into a groove, right? It's similar in my kind of job as well. Now I don't really deal with people that much in my job, not really, but it's similar in that you just there's an expectation of how things go. There's an expectation of the protocol of things, and this can be mapped to any system, if we call it systems, right? Whether it's diagnosing an eye problem, or whether it's a tattoo, or whether it's fixing an IT problem, whatever it is, there's a protocol of things. And there's an expectation that you have when engaging with that system multiple times, right? And yeah, sometimes that system doesn't act how you expect it to act, right? Like I'm sure you've been about to tattoo someone and they've jumped in the chair because they expect the needle to hurt way more, or you know, you start and then they're actually way more relaxed than you expected them to be, or you know, there's all of these there's a multitude of reactions that the system that you usually have doesn't account for, the protocol you usually have doesn't account for. So yeah, I mean, having empathy and compassion for the system to then map your protocols, because your protocols are probably right? Like the lady or the doctor, whoever it is that's coming to that patient that hasn't been there before, they're going to do the same thing that they're going to do regardless. But having an extra step in the protocol to be like, you all right? Like, are you okay? You good? It's going to be fine. Like, we're going to deal with it. It's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very different. And like you said, like you've essentially built that protocol in consciously and subconsciously, it sounds, where, you know, for the longest time, I mean, clearly you thought about it a lot because it's apparent in your words, but you know, conversation is a big thing, right? But also like complicity, like compliance is a big thing, and ensuring that you weed out the things that the client isn't happy with and that you're not happy with, right?
Mm, exactly, and it's a dance in that way, right? It's kind of
Yeah,
yeah, and I think as well, it's definitely part of it. Of, you know, if it is heading in the wrong direction, because every now and then you can feel it kind of gets chipped away. You know, with, you know, my original thought isn't like I'm getting pushed away into it. So sometimes I think it can be a thing that, with no hard feelings, maybe I'm not the right person. Maybe like I suggest this guy's amazing. You're more into this. I think that's kind of part of it as well, right? I think
yeah.
it
And
needs to be.
how do you deal with that? Because like at the end of the day, that's money off your table. At the end of the day, do you know what I mean? Like, how do you how do you get to that position?
Well, I think I try and completely disassociate money with it. You know, um, we're quite lucky that I'm pretty busy, so I'm pretty
Sure.
lucky. Do you know what I mean? I'm pretty lucky in that way, that I feel like, and I kind of have been the whole time I've been tattooing. I've come into tattooing at a really good time. You know, if I was into it 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it wouldn't be like this. So I'm pretty thankful for the time that I've landed in it. That lots of people want to be tattooed. Um, so to me, it's, if someone comes to me and I don't feel confident with it, I don't feel like they're going to get the absolute best thing with me. You know, if they're trying to push, it's just a completely different style of work, or it's not completely my thing, then I think it's my duty kind of thing to let them know that. you know, without any money being involved. You know, it feels weird that money is involved.
Yeah, I was going to ask this. I was going to get to this. Is
Yeah.
like, there's from a client side, right? And obviously I've never tattooed anyone in my entire life, but from a client side, it seems utterly normal that you would pay for somebody's artwork, right? Even if it's on your body, even if you're the canvas, right? It makes utter sense that you pay for that, right? But where it does get really squirrely is in those situations that you've just talked about, where there isn't that natural flow of things and there's some bumps in the road, and then it becomes like, oh, but this is my idea, right? You're just the vessel to put my idea on me, right?
Yeah.
Whereas that's not kind of the way it works, you know?
No, and you know what? It's super rare that I have anything like that. Like, I feel like I've been saying this, but you know, you can pretty much count on your hand with like in the last few years of how many difficult kind of situations I've had with anyone. It's always, you know, for the most part, if they've seen your work and they get it, they kind of get it, you know. So we don't really have any issues in that way. But yeah, with the money side of it, it just kind of feels weird, as we were saying, how personal this is, and that I've marked you
Yeah.
forever, and then, you know,
Hey, mate.
and then you give me some paper for it, you know, and it's like, I get that's just what it is. I need to eat and I need to, you know, pay bills and stuff, but it's yeah, it feels like a weird way of doing it. But I'm glad that I'm kind of really not part of it either. Like, it's kind of you know, our receptionists deal with all of that stuff, so it's kind of, I'm awful at it. It's like, I just want to be able to draw on you and let them deal with that other stuff. So it makes my life easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that setup is a really nice setup as well, because what you have is then it's just about, because to me, I mean, I've been tattooed a few times now, but each time it feels more and more like a ritual than it does. Like, it doesn't feel like you're going into a shop to make a transaction. It doesn't.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like that. Like, maybe for some people it does, but for me, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like you're going in somewhere to experience something. And
I think that's what it should be.
Yes, I think so. I mean, that's how it feels to me. So that's why I'm saying that's, you know, I think so.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think, yeah, having the money dealt with by reception is perfect, because then when you've got the tattoo, you can go in, you don't have to think about money. You've already discussed it, everything's sorted. And then when you leave, equally, you can kind of compartmentalize that experience as an experience, and there's no, because money kind of mars it a little bit. Do you know what I mean? It kind of makes it feel a little bit cheap.
Does. It makes it feel like we're back in the actual world of things. You know, I feel like I always feel like I try and live outside of everything, and it's like, cool, I just do fucking, you know, I'm drawing on you today. Like, that's a weird situation for most of life, you know. So then it's like we're bringing reality back into it as you throw money into the mix and stuff. So yeah, I like to live in the fantasy reality more.
For sure, yeah.
Prefer
I think,
that.
but then that fantasy reality is not really all that fantasy, is it?
No, it's my life.
Exactly.
yeah. So it's all good.
Yeah,
it does feel like it's not really like, with all this COVID stuff happening as well. I was kind of thinking, as it was first hitting beginning in March sort of time, I thought, fuck, am I gonna have to get like, I'm gonna have to do like a normal job. Never had a normal job. I don't know what I'm gonna be like doing that. If not, you know, we're not be able to tattoo or whatever. I'm not used to not drawing on people.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that, because there's a couple of things. I mean, the first thing I wondered and wanted to get to is like how lockdown was and has been for you, because obviously you've opened up the shop again now, but that's only relatively recently. I mean, you guys were closed for a number of months, right?
Yeah, it was about 4 months that it was closed. So it was really strange, obviously, to not tattoo anyone for that long. It was, you know, it was good in a way. I really enjoyed just working on artwork in that time, and just kind of go like, you know, I'm not tattooing, so don't think like, oh, I wish I was tattooing, or I wish I was doing this. So it was just kind of, that's not happening. So just work on artwork. I loved it, actually. I really liked it. It was lovely to come back and tattoo again. Straight away, it was like, okay, this is brilliant. But yeah, in that time, it was kind of, I produced the most amount of work that I think I've ever produced in that amount of time, you know. I think it was just because it was like a constant. There was like no breaks with it. Like no, even like you don't go out and drive. You don't go out and really speak to anyone. It was like I was completely in my head during it, you know. And living with the artwork as well. Like I didn't really go to my studio too much. It was more working at home. So I think that made a difference of just, you know, you finish working it at night, wake up in the morning, it's straight there again, and it's like it's constant. So yeah, I enjoyed that, and even like sort of like sleep rhythms changed. Went straight back to when I was in art college and going to sleep at 5 o'clock in the morning and working through the night, and it was kind of I work best in that way. So coming out of lockdown, I've kind of changed the way I'm doing it in that way as well. You know, tattoo like normal times during my tattoo week, and then my next one, changing my rhythms of like going to sleep super late so I can work through the nights on that week.
And how does your good lady go on? Sorry.
No, go on.
What I was gonna say is how does your good lady cope when you're awake, you know, sleeping at 5 a.m. or awake till 5 a.m. working till
Well, she's not too bad. She because I'm scratching metal as well. I shut all the doors. I put all stuff up down the thing so she's not hearing the scratching metal while she's in bed. But yeah, well, pretty much I don't sleep super long anyway normally, so I get in bed and then by the time I'm up, we're both getting up sort of together-ish.
Okay.
So it kind of it sort of works out all right. Yeah, there's something about working at night for me.
I love it.
Has been. It's like
I love it.
Yeah, it's everyone else. It's like you get the world to yourself now for a little bit, you know. There's something about that. I've always been attracted to that. You know, I was talking to my mum recently as well and saying that, well, I'm an only child, and I think I crave that, you know, need to be on my own sometimes. And I think at night, you're literally on your own. Like, no one's texting you. Like, you can, like, go for a walk. No one's there. Especially where I live, it's super quiet. So, yeah, I feel like it's a necessity for me to be on my own at night for a little bit.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, the time my brain wakes up is about 10:30 p.m. About 10:30 p.m. my brain's like, all right, let's have a day, let's do things. Whereas usually, like, that's when my missus is going to bed. And just like,
exactly,
you coming to bed? And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm wide awake. Like, I'm wide awake. So yeah, I absolutely understand you 100%. Why? Let me try and phrase this question properly. Like, when you are completing your artwork, right? Because that's solely for you. When you're working, what is it you're trying to get across? What's your inspiration? What's the message you have behind your artwork?
There isn't necessarily like, well, I say there isn't necessarily, you know, a thing to get across, but I'm sure there is. You know, I'm sure that it's me, isn't it? It's me that's coming through it. But a lot of the time, I carry a sketchbook with me, and it's but from this year I've been doing it kind of make sure every day I sketch, and that thing of just constant. Every time I sit down, and do you know what? I'm actually really inspired by people on their phones all day. I see everyone that sits down and goes on their phones and scrolls forever. Everyone does it, and I'm like, shit, man, I could draw. That these people are on their phones way more than I'm drawing. Like, I could get way more drawing in. So yeah, it's weird that that's kind of inspired me, but it's just been kind of, I don't know, almost like a weird pattern recognition of. I love like picking up interesting shapes on things and trying to, and it all. I don't know what happens, but it's like you see all these different shapes, taking all these things, your hands constantly moving, and then they all kind of just come out of a weird filter, I guess, and kind of merge, because there's bits on all of my etchings that no one else would ever see them, but it was like, okay, that shape was kind of my, you know, while I was having a shower, that was the reflection on the window, that was that little bit, that was while I was making my eggs, and but sometimes they're not as literal as that, you know, but I'm not sure. I think it's actually observing and seeing the world around you and letting things click. Especially now with everybody so locked into technology, it's almost like people don't look up a lot.
I think people don't even look. People don't look anywhere a lot.
Yeah.
Not up, but not even down, because when you're looking down, you'll see the floor, but nobody's really looking at the floor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like your brain is concentrated, or your eyes are concentrated to very one narrow field of vision, right? And that, I think, is something that is worrying to me, especially, right? And I wondered this actually, like, in a roundabout way, it's kind of the same question, but like, if you are tattooing someone, right, let's say, and you've got a 7-hour session booked in, how do you feel if they put headphones on and they just are on their phone the whole time?
It's weird. It is weird. It doesn't happen really often, but it is strange. Normally, normally we just sort of hang out for a day, and it's kind of, we won't be talking solid like the whole time or whatever, but we sort of, you know, speak for half an hour or so, have a, a bit of silence, and it's kind of, it is strange when people do that, because it's like purely their body's here, but they're not here anymore.
It's a transaction, right?
And it is strange. I worked in Germany a couple of times, and in this studio they give them iPads as they come in, and they just sit there and watch Netflix.
Wow.
And it was like, whoa, fuck, man, this feels weird that I have no idea who I've just tattooed.
Yeah.
I don't, but the other side, I know tattoo artists that put headphones in and do that, and for them it's just, that's how they zone in. That's how they can concentrate. So I guess it's whatever works for you, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, one of my best friends got tattooed 2 weeks ago, and the guy, when he sat in the chair, the guy was like, "Look, I like to work in silence. Is that okay?" And my friend was like, "Yeah, I guess. Like, sure." And then he cracked on, and that was it, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, me personally, like, I kind of, as you said earlier, you kind of give up control of yourself for a period of time. So for me, it kind of goes however the artist wants to go, right? If the artist is quiet, I'm going to be quiet. Exactly. If the artist talks, I'll talk, right? It's whatever.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like I've only ever really looked at my phone once, and that was a really long session, like the longest session I've ever done. And it was halfway through, and the artist was knackered, and I was knackered, and it was just, I just needed something to just take my brain away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But I feel like not looking at your phone, being involved in the process. Like, this may sound very sadistic, but let's go with it. But I'm somebody that likes to focus on the pain. I'm somebody that likes to feel the pain, right? I'm somebody, because that's a lot of the process, right? To me, feeling the pain of a tattoo is, you have to love that idea so much that it's worth the pain of it, right? And when you're in that tattoo, when you're getting that pain, it's like, Jesus Christ, like, then you really see if the idea was worth it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's part of the process.
It's part of the fucking process.
Part of owning this piece is that you felt every single part of it, you know. And I definitely feel like, you look at something in a different way. Like these paintings behind you, they look amazing.
Thank you.
But you wasn't there for every single part of it, right? And it's that thing of, it's, you literally, whenever you look at a piece you've got tattooed on you, it's like you actually felt all of that. You know, there's definitely something to that. And even something to having painful sessions and being able to kind of work your way through them. Yeah. It's like you actually earned the piece.
Yes, absolutely. Earning the piece. That is, that's huge. And on that, what do you think about pain relief? Like numbing creams and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, you know what? I think, why not? I'm not into like, I want to hurt you or anything like that, or you should go through the worst pain ever. Like, I'm a lot more of kind of, if I can make it as comfortable for you as possible, then why wouldn't you? You know, like, if it means that you can sit longer, I can work on this area, this part of the tattoo for longer, then I think it's all good. A lot of the time the stuff you put on beforehand is a bit, doesn't really work great. But the stuff that I kind of spray as I go a lot of the time on people, especially if I'm like layering over things and keep working over the same areas, I tend to spray it with something like that. But the ones where you put them on before the tattoo, I don't think really work great. They work good for a small amount of time, and then it's all of a sudden 2 or 3 hours in, it wears off, and then it's like you're all in with no build up, and that usually affects people badly.
Yeah.
That I found.
So I've only ever
against that. Yeah.
I've only ever used pain numbing once, and it was on my chest here in the middle in the clavicle. That's not the clavicle, sorry, in the middle here. And it was we were already 5.5 hours deep. It was 2 a.m. It was in Russia, so it was fucking freezing.
Bloody hell, that's a story.
Yeah, that is a story. Yeah, I mean, all right. Yeah, we can talk about that, I guess. So, I generally travel for my tattoos. Like I am somebody that it doesn't matter to me really where the artist is. It's more that I want to get tattooed by that artist with this idea. Like, I kind of feel like you pay for what you get, right? And you put in, like, you get what you put in. So I've been to Canada a few times. I've been to Russia. I went to France. My last tattoo I got in Brighton, so it's not really traveling, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm more than happy, more than willing to travel if travel is what's necessary. And yeah, so I got tattooed by a guy called Ben Klevesky. Have you heard of Ben Klevesky?
No.
So he's a guy that does, I'll show you on here because I will be able to, but he's a guy that does like serious color works.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, for those on the video, you'll be able to see it. For those not on the video, you just have to hear it. But
looks painful.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, the actual chest itself was fine. Like it was just tattoo paint. Like it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. But then when it got to the middle, like, oh my God, because he'd done one side and then he did this side and the middle was last. And yeah, it was, like I said, we were in Moscow. We started really late. So I got there at like 10 a.m., 11 a.m. and he had a translator. So it took a long time for me to convey the idea that I actually wanted. And then he was like, I'm going to do some drawings, like go away, like walk around Moscow, get some food, whatever. So we walked around Moscow. It's like -30, right? So it's fucking bitterly cold, right? We managed to walk around Moscow, waste some time, waste about 4 hours, go back. He's not finished. So we then sit and I start reading a book on prison tattoos and I get lost in that for about 2 hours. And then he comes up and he's like, what do you think of this? And I was like, yeah, man, like that's perfect. I mean, I changed a couple of things and like asked for some things and whatever. And it's not actually finished. Like I need to go back and get it finished. When we eventually got back, like, as I say, we didn't start until quite late. I don't think we started until like 10 p.m., 11 p.m., something like that. And I was originally booked for 2 sessions, but when we were about 4 hours in, he was like, do you want to just crack on and just try and do it all in one session? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I did, and that was probably, I mean, I tried to do all of my tattooing in one session. I've never done a tattoo in 2. So
that's
but yeah,
crazy.
I just try and crack on, to be honest, because I hate the healing process. I hate it so much. So like if I could heal once, I'll take that. I will take that all day, rather than healing like twice, 3 times, whatever it is. But yeah, so we're like, as I say, we're like 5 hours deep. I haven't really eaten. There's not really much water there. He doesn't really speak English, right? A phenomenal artist, but he could see me, and I was just in some of the worst pain I've ever felt. Like my body was reacting without me actually being conscious to do anything. Like my chest was caving in and my teeth were chattering and my foot was cramping, and it was just a bit of a nightmare. And he was like, he like held up Bactine and was like, do you want some of this? And I was like, yes, I do. And yeah, it was good. Like it was such a surreal feeling for about half an hour, and then the pain just instantly kicked back in. But for that half an hour was bliss. Like it was bliss.
It does work. You don't get long with it.
It does fucking work.
It takes the edge off. Yeah, that sounds like a tough day though.
Yeah, it's not my toughest day though. To be honest, like I went to Canada and got both of the outside of my legs tattooed, and we did them back to back. One was a 10-hour, one was a 12-hour day. Those were the toughest days. Yeah, those are the toughest
brutal.
days.
You've
Yeah,
definitely earned them then.
it's so worth it though. Like it's so worth it. Like,
yeah,
you know, people say, when I say that, like, 10 and 12-hour days, people are like, oh my God, like yourself, they're like, oh my God, that's incredible. But some of the leg tattoo, I fell asleep. Like I was out for like half an hour. I just had a quick nap. Like you know, your body just kind of normalizes that pain. Cause on the outside of my leg, it wasn't that terrible. Like I was not sleeping during my chest tattoo. Don't get me wrong. Like I was nowhere near sleep. But yeah, I think, I've kind of derailed this podcast a little bit by going on about tattoos, but yeah, I think the earning the piece thing is huge. I think, and I think, to be honest, I think it's similar with artwork. But this is a question I was going to ask: is like, artwork is generally way more expensive than a tattoo, and yet, like you've said, the tattoo is so much more personal. Like, why do you think that is?
It's strange, isn't there? I guess it's got some kind of it's whatever someone's willing to pay kind of thing, you know. And I think there's some sort of, I guess there's some snobbery in the art world as well.
Maybe, yeah.
I guess there's that. I'm not sure, but it's yeah. As we said, there's definitely something different to someone buying, you know, well, say buying, someone getting a tattoo off of you compared to the painting or a piece of artwork. It feels different.
Yeah, it does.
You know, it definitely does. But it's still cool. You know, if someone buys some artwork, it's amazing because it's them saying they're allowing you to keep doing this. You know, there's definitely that to it as well. It's like, cool, you can keep going with this. So that's amazing in itself as well.
Yeah. Do you have, I mean, this probably isn't a question you're going to be able to answer, but do you have a preference if you had to only ever do one? And I know that's kind of the problem that you had with tattooing, is that that's all you were doing, right? But if you had to do one,
it's hard, isn't it? Because like, I feel like they're almost the same thing of just kind of, you know what, if I could only do anything, I'd probably just sketch. If I could pick one thing out of anything, because that's the thing I do that's the thing I do the most out of anything is sketching. I feel like that's the stuff that I get the most information from. That's the stuff that kind of, like, all the observational drawing, all the kind of, I basically do like little drills of drawing of like, I completely limit myself to like, I can only do these types of lines. I can only do these types of lines, like building like the whole thing. We've only been able to do this. Like I constantly do these, try and make up these weird drills for myself and stuff. So yeah, I think that's the one thing that I'd keep out of everything, you know,
and you
because they're all offshoots.
Come on, finish.
Oh no, I was going to say I feel like all like tattooing and etching and painting and everything like that. For me, they're all offshoots of sketching. You know, sketching is the foundation of everything. So yeah, that's the thing that I'd want to do.
And you said there that that's where you get the most information from. What do you mean by that?
Well, just the information kind of out of me and of the world, you know, and of the world, you know. It's kind of, all right, so much weird shit in there constantly, and you know, things that I'd almost be kind of embarrassed. Like you see someone looking through your sketchbook and you're like, fuck, don't look through that. It almost feels like you're looking through my diary or something.
Yeah.
Because it's a thing that I'll just draw anything that's kind of coming into my head, and you know, sometimes I don't really want someone to see that. It's like a lot of, even that I don't really post a lot of my things online necessarily, because I don't know, it feels like it's too much. You're getting too much into my head a little bit to show all of my sketch. Yeah, I think there's it is a difficult thing of kind of showing everyone that, because it is completely letting them see inside your head a little bit if you're just vomiting this kind of this sketching all over the page every day.
And I
love it.
There is a privacy thing there, right? It's like, there's something that's so, you know, I'm not really a creative person per se. Like I did art A level and all that kind of stuff, but I used it really as a medium to just let out pain, really. Like really, when I look back at the sketchbooks that I had from sort of year 8 to year 13, it was just me being an emotional teenager, right? And that's really all my artwork ever was. And I kind of feel, like you say, like there's some deeply personal things in there that to you at the time they may just feel necessary to get out, right? But Instagram doesn't need to see that necessarily.
No.
You know, I feel like we're moving towards a place where your thoughts are going to be viewable anyway, right? By some weird adaptation. So the longer that we can keep that privacy, the better, I suppose. And on the thought of Instagram, like, how do you feel about the likes of Instagram and Facebook and whatever when, as an artist, how do you determine those apps? And as a person, like, yeah.
I find them very strange, and I use it purely to put my work on there because, you know, well, it's there. It's the way that people get to view your work. It's the way that, you know, exactly that's the way that people view it. But I feel like I hate it at the moment more than ever. You know, it feels so intrusive now. The same things you were saying with people on their phones. It's the thing of, you know, I feel like I'm addicted to it. In the thing of, it's like I feel like I use it less than most of the people I know, and I'm like, I can feel so addicted to this thing of, if I look at it for a second, I'm completely gone in this, and it's like the world around you just completely disappears, and you're like, that's too much for me. So I've gone fully the other way, that look like I'm a mental person. I've got a little burner phone, and I just use that with my friends and family kind of on there, and I use Instagram to post my work on there, and I use it like that to talk to people, you know, clients and stuff. And but it's kind of, I know that I say it's inevitable. Things are going down a direction that are not controllable to, you know, to us necessarily on the masses, but it's just a completely different world right now, isn't it? I can imagine being in school now would be super strange. Growing up with this, I think is the massive thing. Throwing a screen in front of a child, or, you know, that seems damaging to me.
I agree. I mean, how old are you?
25.
Right, so you're fucking younger than I am, right? But I agree. Like if you were 15, like, remember what you were like at 15. Remember what I was like at 15. If there was, we were already struggling with social hierarchy and where we stood and how we viewed ourselves and what it meant to be a self and all of this kind of stuff, to then be thrust into the idea of having an online persona that is determined, that's essentially entirely separate from the self and entirely separate from the life that you actually lead. Like, that must be like, it's just, it can't be good. I don't see a way that it can be, you know. Like you say about addiction, like I'm entirely addicted to it, and I don't know if you watch any TV. Like, I try my best to not watch TV because I get addicted to it, but like me and my missus put on The Social Dilemma the other day on Netflix, and essentially the point of that documentary is to break down how apps like Facebook and Google and Twitter and Instagram, whatever, are methodically designed to become addictive, right? And how they're designed in a way similar to the endorphin releases of drugs and these kinds of things. And it's absolutely common and absolutely understandable that, like you've just said, let's say you're posting some work and then a post grabs you because that's what it's supposed to do, right? And next minute you're scrolling for 20 minutes and you don't realize where 20 minutes have gone, and you look at your screen time and you've been on Instagram you're scrolling for 20 minutes and you've forgotten where the 20 minutes have gone, and you look at your screen time and it says 2 hours that day and you're like, Jesus, I don't know where those 2 hours went either. And all of this time, you know, you're essentially feeding information of some form into an AI machine that then learns how best to keep you trapped in that app, right?
It's crazy, you know, and it feels like, if this thing is so addictive and there's people way smarter than me trying to make people addicted to this, like, why would I not be addicted? So to me, I feel like I don't want to play with fire with it. You know, I'll post my things, I'll do whatever, it's for my work, and then I'm out now. because it feels like the thing, if everybody's addicted, then there's no issue.
Yeah.
I think if it was like, if you was addicted to anything else in the way or use anything in the way that most people use phones, all your family would be coming to surround you like an intervention,
Yeah.
like what's
Yeah.
going on? This is the first thing you do in the morning. This is the last thing you do at night. Every time you sit down, every time you do anything, you do this thing. Anytime there's a pause in life, there isn't really a pause. There's other shit to look at, but you're grabbing that. And I think it's a sort of a scary moment of people. Even like today we're driving past, like, we're near a school at around 3 o'clock, and you could see all of the kids, every single one of them had their phone in their hand, or they're watching a video as they're walking, or they're texting, or they're scrolling. It was literally every single one of them, and it was like, whoa, that's pretty insane.
Yeah. I mean, I work in the IT industry, right? So I kind of have an understanding of some of the background stuff, but like I remember learning how to use a computer, right? Like I remember learning like, oh, this is a keyboard. Like, okay, cool. This is the alphabet. I kind of get that. Like, oh, I can write sentences. Okay, cool. That makes sense. I don't have to use my hand anymore. Like I can just type it fine. And then I remember getting the internet in the house, and my mom would fucking scream at me because she couldn't phone my nan, and all this kind of stuff, right? Like I remember all this stuff. So I remember learning how to use this stuff, but then I have a nephew who's 4 now, and I remember at 2 years old he could unlock his mum's phone. Never been shown how to do that. He could take a picture. He could go to the app store and download something. He didn't know, like nobody showed him how to do that. He was born into an age where technology is almost in the genes now, right?
Yeah.
And Elon Musk says something which is really scary. Is he was asked a question about how he's like, when do you think that we're going to become cyborgs? Right? When do you think that we're going to become one with machine? And he was like, we already are.
Yeah, I know. I heard that.
Yeah. And then the interviewer was like, what? And he was like, half of your life is in your phone, right? Mm-hmm. If you take that phone away from you for 12 hours, you'll have withdrawal symptoms, right? Like you are already a cyborg in some fashion. And that to me 100%. Is like I'll probably say this publicly because I'll have to do it, but it's amongst the other things that I have going on, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to write like a mini thesis maybe / dissertation. And my idea, the hypothesis for that is that humans are subconsciously or consciously creating the next evolution of humans, and that is AI or technology of some form. Because if I look at the expanse of time in which we've gone from lighting a room by a candle to having almost we could light a room with our phone, right? Like the expanse of time is a blink of an eye in the history of the world, and yet here we are. Like if I'm in a dark room now, I would probably be more inclined to put the flashlight on my phone on than I would to turn the light switch on, if I was just going by what my body told me to do. That's fucked.
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy that, and it's crazy to us, but obviously, as you were saying with your nephew, that it's kind of, when you're born into that and that's all you know, and that becomes your only constant in your life as well. And you're seeing your mum and dad hooked to this thing as well. And it's not, it becomes so normal, but then their kids, if you're fully immersed in this, and it makes sense that you are building the next stage of, I say, humanity, the next stage of life, or however you want to say it.
Yeah.
But it looks that way, right?
I think so. I really think so. And like to even cement that further, like my nephew loves Sonic, right? The thing at the minute is Sonic. He's Sonic mad. Runs around the house being Sonic, like loves it. And what he does is he will play he will, like, you know, Twitch, right? You know the idea of Twitch. So he'll watch some guy play Sonic online, right, on the TV, and then he'll be playing online the same game this guy is, right? And you see him. I've watched him play. He's 4 years old, and he's beating people. Like, you're not allowed this game unless you're 13 plus, right? But there's kids that he's beating online that are like 3 times his age, and this motherfucker is like, he's not even playing the game. He's watching the guy on the screen play the game, and he's just doing it without looking. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this kid's a robot. Like, this kid is a robot.
Yeah, exactly. Like what you were saying about being a cyborg. How much closer are you to being a cyborg if that is all you know?
Yeah.
That's it from birth.
Yeah. That's an excellent point. Yeah.
Like that's a different ball game now, isn't it?
Because even you could argue in some way tattooing, right? Like original stick tattooing, or all the way back where they just slash your skin and put some ink in, right? Like that's as old school as it gets. And then you have the Japanese Asian style of like poke tattooing. Now there's rotaries, and then there's like really fancy new pens that you can use that make things 100 times smoother. And you know, like even tattooing is becoming more mechanized, more cyborg, if you will, right? And
Definitely.
I wonder how long it'll be until somebody just has a tattoo finger, right? And then it becomes like an Apple pen, right? Where it's like it's literally an extension of your hand.
Yeah. Well, like I've got a wireless machine now. You know, it's got a battery pack on it, and I tattoo with that, and it's literally just this thing. And it's amazing because it's like, okay, this is the next technology of this. But at the same time, it does feel kind of weird of like, fuck, I feel like I just bought an iPhone.
Yes.
You know, when I used to I used to have these machines, these old coil tattoo machines that were like, you know, obviously I haven't even been tattooing that long. I had these, and these were old then, you know, so it wasn't like they were new when I was getting them or anything. But they look beautiful. They're like hand built by people, and there's something really cool to them. And then as they go further and further along, it's like this thing. There's no beauty to it at all. Well, I say there's no beauty to it at all. I guess the way it functions is the beauty in itself. You know, it's amazing.
It's the efficiency, right?
It's the efficiency. That's all it has to it. There's no, you know, you'd never have that machine. You know, it's a thing that a lot of tattoo artists get a machine tattooed on them and things like that. You'd never have that thing tattooed on you. It's the ugliest looking thing ever. But it's the next technology, isn't it? But as you said, like tattoo finger, or I have people always saying to me like, you know, one day you're probably going to stick your arm in something and it's going to tattoo. It's like, yeah, probably, right? But then I think it's the difference of someone who still wants something by a human or doesn't want something by a human. You know, do you want a photograph or do you want a painting? I guess it gets to that kind of stage.
Well, I think this is kind of the point of where I'm going, is like, I suspect that you will be able to be in a scenario where you could have the image. I suspect we could be in a scenario where I could put a headset on, you could put a headset on, and I would appear at Immortal Ink, and I'd sit down in the chair with you, and you would tattoo my skin, and I wouldn't have left my house.
Probably.
And then if I didn't like it, I could just erase it when I took the headset off.
You change it whenever you want.
Right.
Exactly. Ever changing, right?
Exactly.
But the thing that I still do find interesting with that is it's still primal. Even out of that, you know, it's still primal to mark your body. There's something to it of like, but as long as people.
Are you marking your body though? Because this is like, this is kind of where I'm going, is like, we're in a time now where body dysmorphia and body modification is seriously real. Do you know what I mean? Like, tattooing is body modification in some fashion, right? Just because we love it and have a passion for it, like, doesn't mean it's not body modification. Whereas now the lengths at which body modification go, like people splitting their tongues and rearranging their faces to have spikes in them and all this kind of thing, like that will become the new norm, just as tattooing has become the new norm over the last 30 years. And to your point, like, marking your skin, but if you're able to erase it, is it really marking it?
Yes, not. I guess it's the thing of having no history as well, right? It's if you can delete your history and it didn't happen,
Yeah.
then what actually exists, you know?
Right. Right. Because I think that some of the power of a tattoo, for instance, or the power of anything, is that it's both finite and infinite, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that life is finite, but for the period in which you have your life, that thing is generally infinite. Now, you know, you can go and you can get tattoos covered, you can get tattoos lasered, and that's fine. Like, that's fine. I genuinely, I have no problem with that. But I think that, you know, there is an element of your body that will still carry those scars. Like, getting a tattoo removed is not, it's not 100%, right? Like, if you get it removed, there's still scarring there, there's still tissue, there's scar tissue, all that kind of stuff. Like, sure, you won't see the ink necessarily, and if you get another tattoo over it, you won't even know it was there, but still, there's still something under the remnants that carries a trace, right? Whereas, yeah, if we go all the way to the situation that we've just discussed, where you put a headset on, I put a headset on, and all of a sudden I'm being tattooed by you, I get back and I'm like, oh, I don't like this bit, so I'm just going to erase it. Like, it's not the same. Like, I don't think it's anywhere near primal, really.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting as well, isn't it? Because it's like, it's looking at it from our perspective in this world.
Yeah.
But I guess when you're that person that sat at home getting it transferred on you, you're going to have a completely different mindset of what primal is and what a tattoo is, who you are, right? Like, I can imagine, like when you were saying about social media and everything kind of, you said something about like feelings being, like your emotions and stuff being put out to everybody eventually, that it seems like it's going to be one of them kind of things. You know, if there's that and everyone's completely transparent, I know how you feel, I've got a record of all of your feelings, and everything's public in that way, then I think the definition of who you are changes dramatically as well, right?
100%. And I think, you know, I think that, so it seems apparent to me that at the moment, commodity is feelings. Like, feelings are a commodity, because if we look at things like Facebook or whatever, they're going to serve you content that makes you feel something. It could be good feelings, it could be bad feelings, it could be, it's somewhere in between, but they're going to serve you content, or attempt to serve you content, that makes you engage. And engagement is derived from feeling, right? So in order for you to engage with something, whether it be an advert or a post or whatever it is, there must be a feeling attached to it. Therefore, the commodity is feelings. And more, we are selling, consciously or unconsciously, those feelings in order to retrieve the endorphins of the reactionary engagements. So, as you say, more and more, if you're willing to pour emotions, pour your money, pour your value, your emotional value into these spheres, then there'll come a time where there's, you know, you've entirely invested into that sphere. There is no emotional commodity anymore, because you sold it all, right? It's gone. It's like any drug, right? Like, eventually, if you take enough heroin, there's not much left of you, right? Like, if you take enough cocaine, your teeth and nose are going to have a long time. Like, you know, like chewing a steak with cocaine teeth of 15 years is going to be a problem, right? Like, so, and I think it's the same. And I actually think this is kind of one of the points I have about my idea, is that the very notion of emotion is different now. The understanding of what emotion is very different to what it was 30 years ago, for instance. Like, if I go and read an Alexander Dostoevsky, an Alexander Solzhenitsyn novel or whatever, the way that he portrays emotions is so beautiful. Whereas then if I go to Instagram, it's like or comment. It's love heart or laughing face. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's they're so much more, I don't want to use the word dumb, because in their own right, they're expansive, but they're so much more siloed than ever before, really.
I guess you think it's a thing that's kind of, if we're going to try and get the most amount of people in this as possible, then we have to simplify.
Yes.
And there can't be any grey area. It's like, I have to see I have to see this, and I have to understand it, Do I like that? Do I not like it? That's it.
Yeah.
You know, which breeds weird stuff, right? You see people that they wanna be an Instagrammer or something like that, you know, and
Yeah.
to do that, it's kind of, you have to simplify yourself so much. If you want to do something super subtle, but you're not going to get someone on their scroll to stop and look at your thing, you know, it breeds weird thoughts. I feel like, you
It
know,
does, and
it's
even with something as shit as like the podcast, right? Like sometimes I'll catch myself looking at stats of the podcast, and I'll be like, okay, that episode did better than that episode, and I'll be like, why is that? And not why is that from a continually, you know, trying to be continually progressive and get myself better at doing this thing all the time. It's more like, what can I do more of to get more of those digital things that mean nothing? Like, what can I do more of to get more of those? Whereas, you know, the reason that I did this was just to have fun, right? Just to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And there's a more serious reason, and, you know, people that have listened to podcasts before will know, but, you know, it's more, there's way more than the digital gratification, the digital validation that I think so many people crave in the era that we live in, right? So much more. But because, as you've rightly said, like, people have become, and dare I say it, so simple that it's like robotics, right?
Yeah.
Like a computer, for instance, a computer will do what you tell it to do, right? It doesn't know anything different. Now, with AI and stuff, with the algorithms and everything else, maybe that becomes slightly more squirrely, and we can, you know, we can dive into that kind of debate at some point. But on the whole, it's going to do, a PC is going to do what you tell it to do. And it doesn't really do anything different. In the same vein, if you're an Instagrammer, which, as crazy as that does sound, it's almost a legitimate revenue stream at this point, right? Like, do you know how much Kim Kardashian earns from one Instagram post?
No, go on.
It's like $300,000.
Insane, right?
Insane amounts of money, right? So if you're somebody that is in any fashion anywhere near the stratosphere of Kim Kardashian, and you can be paid even a magnitude of 10 of that, you can be paid $300 for an Instagram post. You make what, 10 Instagram posts a month? That's not difficult, right? It's not difficult. And you've got $3,000 a month. What? Like, that's insane, right? Like, it's a genuine revenue stream. But as you said, what do you have to do? You have to dumb yourself down to be, do I like you? Do I not? And then when people like you, you do more of that thing. When people dislike you, you do less of that thing. There's a blogger that my partner follows, and man, it's like watching a fucking train wreck. Like, it really is. Just watching someone go further and further and further into this rabbit hole of just trying to be accepted in this sphere, right? And in all, you know, in some fashion, we all crave validation, right? But I'm just not sure that the validation that people are craving now is the same definition of validation that I have.
Yeah, and it really seems like, you know, if you go by what everybody looks like they're liking of your stuff, you're just gonna, you know, you need to be you, don't you? You need to produce what's inside you rather than what everyone else is seeing. And I definitely think it's that thing of, it's so hard though, right? Especially now where you're completely on top of it. But it's kind of, you know, is it Henry Ford, isn't it? If you ask people what they wanted, they'd ask for a faster horse. You know, it's that thing of, if you feel like you're kind of, you're working with something or you've got something, it's pushing through, whether it's, you know, if it feels good to you, then that's the thing to do, right? Like, I definitely found with any work I've done and stuff, that normally the stuff that I love of my artwork, that I feel like, okay, that's the most me, or that feels like the most original stuff, no one gives a shit about. You know, they're normally the ones, and then you can see something that's like, okay, you know, people are probably going to like that one, even if it's not necessarily your favorite kind of thing. But it's difficult to not hang on to that stuff, isn't it? But it feels like, you know, we were talking about the numbers and things like that. It doesn't change anything, does it? Like, I love the process of doing the thing, you know, being in the studio, working on it, staring at it for so long, doing this thing, and it's kind of couldn't really give a shit how many people look at it, how many people might like it, you know, and not being a fucking Kim Kardashian with everybody looking at you is probably the best thing of that. You know, imagine how hard it must be for someone like her
I mean,
to try to do anything different, because literally everything is telling you don't do anything different. Keep this going.
Yep. 100%, right? Because, you know, I don't know much about Kim Kardashian, but what I do know
No, me neither.
is that she recently started to study to be a lawyer, right? Because she wanted to help people incarcerated under cannabis charges in the US, because now that it's legal in most states, but people are still serving time for it. And like, to me, that's an entirely valid thing, right? She's doing something that, supposedly she's doing something that seems on the face of it to be a very noble, very ethical decision. And yet people will shit on her for trying to do that because it's straying from the norm, right? And where I see the difference in that is almost in your sort of field, right? Where if you decided to do, I don't know, some crazy tattoo offshoot, right? Where you just changed your style completely. People will be like, oh, that's cool. He's doing something different. Right?
Yeah, you'd hope so. And as well, because it's a way smaller amount of people looking at it. So you're not anonymous either, right? It's like, you know, there's not random people that like fucking millions of people looking at my stuff either, which is probably the best thing for you.
Yeah, because do you reckon that like celebrity tattoo artists like your Nico Totado and Kat Von D and these kinds of people, like, do you think if they changed their style drastically, people would still go to them?
Probably.
Yeah, I think so too.
Probably. Yeah. They're like, you know, they might be celebrity tattoo artists or these super famous people, but they're legitimately good as well at what they do.
God,
you know?
like,
so it's a thing of, and as well, there's definitely the people that probably just want to get tattooed because they're getting tattooed by the
it's the clout, isn't it? Yeah, it's the
one
fucking
as well.
clout.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that as well, which is super strange. You know, you need to get something that you connect with, not just some get to say you've been tattooed by someone or say you've, you know, met someone or something like that.
I think it's the met someone thing, right? Because like I'm not sure that I necessarily have. If somebody's like, I absolutely adore Nico Hurtado's work, I'm going to go and get tattooed by him, and he can do whatever he wants. I kind of don't have a problem with that, because if that's an appreciation of the style and of the graft for 20 years he's put in, fine. In the same vein, like, to me, that's exactly the same thing as somebody walking into Immortal Ink and being like, Luke, tattoo me with whatever you want because I just really like your style. To me, that's exactly the same thing. Though, if you're going and giving a piece of skin and being like, tattoo this, and then just so he can go to his mates and be like, I met Nico Hurtado today, waste, man. Fucking waste, man. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and you're only like ruining an experience that could have been brilliant for yourself as well, right?
And spending a fuck ton of money while you do it.
Yeah, exactly. All of that's involved, right?
Yeah, but I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I wanted to ask, because I've asked this of lots of people and I get differing answers. Like, as a tattoo artist, do you enjoy being tattooed?
well, I enjoy having a tattoo. It's not the nicest getting them.
Yeah.
But no, I do enjoy getting tattooed. I feel like I learn so much. Like I try to get tattooed by as many different people as I can. Like completely different styles of work as well. Like, and I always feel like I pick something up off of them. You know, even like I've been getting a back piece done and by Jason Butcher and Leanne Mole, who they do collaborations, and they were the ones that kind of taught me to tattoo as well. So, well, not kind
Amazing.
of, they did.
Amazing.
And feeling them work on my back is always really interesting, because it's a thing of I can't see what they're doing, but it's really trying to tune in and feel what they're doing, especially with Leanne, because Leanne does all color work, and to me it's super alien, you know, like the way she works, and I always feel like you know, trying to feel what she's doing, and the way her mindset is completely get tattooed by Jason, get tattooed by Leanne, and they're so different.
Yeah.
You know, you know exactly who's tattooing you if you wasn't looking, which I always find kind of interesting. But yeah, I like to get tattooed. I love getting tattooed by
So you're the
lots of people.
first tattoo artist that I've spoken to that's told me they like to get tattooed. Every single other
Yeah.
one has said they fucking hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it hurts.
Yeah, of
It
course.
does hurt.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the process of it, of being, it's nice to be in a tattoo situation where I can turn my brain off as well, you know, and it's like, I feel it's just completely relaxed. Cool. Yeah. All I have to do is be here.
Yeah.
You know, I can turn my brain off. All I can do, I can just watch, you know, like even when I first started tattooing, I really struggled with black and grey, which is what I wanted to do as well. And I got my hand tattooed by Jason, and it literally was like the penny dropped and it clicked that day, and I understood it. And it felt like from the next day when I tattooed is almost like the first day of tattooing. You know, it was feeling it. I always watched, but I think you have to feel it happening to you to actually understand it. You know, and purely on a technical basis of like, you know, without there being any creativity, like what does that feel like when that needle goes in that depth? What does it feel like when it moves at that speed? And you know, you have to be on the other side of it. I feel like, for me anyway.
Yeah, these are things that interest me so much, is the technical details, because I actually have very little. I mean, as I say, I've had tattoos. I know what it feels like to be tattooed, but I have no idea what it feels like to be on the other side of that pen, right? And like the technical details, like you said that Jason and Leanne taught you, like how do you learn? That's such a weird question, but how do you learn to tattoo? Like how do you do that? How do you develop a style? How do you develop a technical process? How do you?
Yeah, well, I felt like I had a different apprenticeship from most people. There was no kind of sit down, this is how you do a line, this is how you do this, how you do that. It was none of that. It was more of like a philosophical kind of teaching in a way, you know. It's Jason's been done martial arts his whole life, and you know, been tattooing forever, and he's definitely got a different approach to kind of. It's more the thing of if you get the technical side will come, you know, you will learn it. If you spend enough time doing it, then it will come. It's the creativity is the important bit, you know. It's kind of, yeah. So I think it's just watching. For me, it was just like, I'm just going to watch you as much as I can. And it's just putting time in, I guess, you know, but tattooing is a weird one because it's, you know, you can draw these things, but then when you start tattooing, you have to do these super simple designs on people, and it feels weird to say you're practicing tattooing because you're not practicing, you're actually tattooing somebody.
Yeah.
So it's like, this ain't practice. It's no different than anyone else doing a tattoo. It's on them forever still.
Yeah.
It's a scary time in the beginning, but super exciting. I loved it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, how do you cope with that? Because I mean, surely you must have made mistakes here and there, and like, how do you cope with that? Knowing, as you've said, knowing all the intimacy that you've already spoken about and how personal it is. Like, how do you cope with? Fuck, I've just made a mistake there.
Working with it.
Yeah.
Working with it. Yeah, you just got to go. Like, there's no like, fuck, this is over. It's like you just got to figure it out. You know. And it's always that thing of doing when you do super simple thing. Everyone thinks that the simple stuff is because it's simple, it's the easiest, but really it's simple. There's nowhere to hide. It's the hardest stuff because there's one thing's off and you see it. But my stuff now, I feel like I just kind of throw my hand around a bit more than anything and just seeing what happens. Because I think it's once you understand the technical aspect, like tattooing doesn't really feel much different than drawing now.
Interesting.
You know, which is a cool place to be with it, you know, like that. I understand that for the most part, like, it's not like you've reached the top level of anything, you know, it's ever going, isn't it? But I understand to a certain degree that how to get ink in the skin.
So would you give yourself a purple belt or would you give yourself a brown belt?
Oh, fuck knows. I let someone else give me the belts. I don't know. But there's always, you know, you do anything and then you see someone else doing it, you're like, shit, look at that guy do it. You know, so however good you think you are, there's always a guy blitzing past you, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
But I think that's important.
I
I
agree,
like that though,
actually.
you know, like I love being around people that, you know, I try and be around as many sort of interesting people as I can, and
Mhm.
as many creative people as many, just because it's that you feed off of each other, you know. Um, you know, it's brilliant to be around someone that's fucking brilliant at what they do, no matter
Oh
what
God,
it
yeah.
is.
Yeah. And you know instantly when you're in the presence of somebody that's like got that expert mastery because they just speak on a different level and they think on a different level and it's
Mm,
just not the same thing. It's just not.
no.
Yeah, it's like and you know a lot to be honest a lot of what you've said in everything that we've spoken about relates almost directly to my experience in jiu-jitsu or it directly
Mm,
experience in my in martial arts full stop, right? And you know,
yeah.
like you'll ask a coach a question and they'll say, "Oh, just do this." And you're like, "Yeah, but the question I'm asking is how do I do the thing you've just said do this?" Right? Because to them it's just, yeah, just do it. Like just do this. That's it, isn't it? You just do it. Whereas
Yeah.
to you, you're asking that question because you fucking no idea what he means or she means.
Yeah. And it's that thing as well of like, it's almost hilarious to think that the person can answer your question with words, right?
Yeah.
It's like the jiu-jitsu thing is kind of it's been so many years that they've been sculpting this thing, and there's so many other things involved to do this one thing, right? There's never a like, oh, how'd you do that? Oh, you just do that. Okay, cool, I've got it. You
Yeah.
know, or if there is, that's fucking rare. That means
Yeah.
you've already got something else going on in you, you know. Um, but like, because you even get the thing of people say like, I'd love to be able to draw. I'd like,
Mhm.
you know, I've got some. It's like, well, you could draw. You can draw. All kids can draw. You know, all kids like to draw. It's that weirdness of when they start thinking. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's when you start thinking you're shit at it, maybe. As you get a little bit older and you think, oh, this guy's better than me at it, or something like that. But you look at any kid's drawing and they're pretty interesting looking. You know, so it's not anything to do with that. Um, I don't know why I went off onto that, but I started talking about something else. But
No, I agree. I mean, I think for that, it's like to me anyway. To me, generally, the pattern of what happens is a kid does a drawing, it takes it to its mom or dad, and says, "Oh, look, I did a drawing," and the mom or dad's like, "Awesome, like, that looks cool." And then eventually, they're going to go to school and they're going to be graded, and it's the grading that
mm,
almost degrades you to you know a lot of why you know what comes through specifically when you're talking about you know your tattooing and this and that and the next thing is that it's fun for you, right? The grind is fun, the grind is enjoyable, because look, there has to be some shit parts of tattooing. Long hours, your hands are hurting, your back's hurting, your brain's hurting, right? Like you're hungry, you're tired, you're sweating absolute bollocks because you're trying to get this one thing right, and the design isn't going exactly how you want it to go, and there's all of these various things. And then when you do it, you're like, oh, it's cool. It's just fun anyway. Like, it's just fun anyway. Like, there's no thing that's without its pains, right? Like you
mm,
said earlier, like, I enjoy the process of doing, but then the stuff after it, like the likes and this and that, you're right. Like, if I could hand off the editing and everything of this podcast and I just get to do this bit, man, that's the dream. But in the same vein, it's important to do this because if I
mm,
don't know how to do this, then doing this, the fun bit, is not the same,
yeah.
right? And it's like going all the way back to what we talked about before, like the protocol of things, the protocol of interacting with things. If you don't know the protocol of things, you can't apply the protocol of things. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that that applies with everything. But on the topic of art, and this will be my point, and you can agree or disagree, is like when things become about external value, that's when the fun goes.
Mm, I agree, definitely. You know, you can't be creating something with the thought of the after bit. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it has to be completely in that moment of making a thing, and um, even to the point of understanding the process. Like we were speaking of that, of um, like I go through dips and phases of like I'll be like, you know, ideas just fucking exploding out of me, it feels like. And then I'll have a day or something where I'm like, fuck, like you feel kind of drained. And then, but I think maybe a few years ago, that them bits would bother me. You know, I'd get super frustrated and it'd feel like nothing's working. Nothing. But then now it feels a lot more like, yeah, but this is part of it. This is part of doing a thing, is having these crap bits in it. Or even like, if I do a drawing and it is shit, or I'm working on
To
etching and
you,
it's
it's
just not
shit.
working. To me, it's shit. Yeah, it's like I'm in a way quite thankful for that, because it's like, you know, this is part of doing of producing the other ones that feel like they work more. You know, like you don't get to do them. You know, all of them shit ones. The good ones wouldn't have happened without the shit ones. So I think it's understanding that process, isn't it, and it fully immersing yourself and you know, accepting that as well
And
seems to be
who,
important.
like, who or what has taught you these sorts of ideologies, I guess? Because there seems to be a very common rhetoric throughout everything that you say, and a lot of it is hard work, it's acceptance, it's trusting the process, it's all of these kinds of things. But then layered on top of that, a sort of the more intimate and expert understandings of nuance and these kind of stuff. Like how did you form that kind of understanding?
Um, I think probably from a couple of people, like my dad, definitely. You know, um, come from architecture, and everything is, you know, is about doing things precise, drawing things precise. Forever was that, you know, growing up teaching me to draw was like, you know, if someone would say draw a face and they draw like a circle with a smiley face type thing in it, he'd be like, well, no, that's not what a face looks like, is it? You know, you have to break this down. Here's a light source. You do this, you do this, and everything was about that, you know. And but then so that forever. But then meeting Jason as well, you know, who taught me, that was massive. He doesn't approach things like a normal person. You know, everything is kind of I don't know. It works naturally the way he does things. There's not like I'm doing this now, I'm doing this now, I'm doing this. It's like he seamlessly moves between tattooing to this to this. You know, that it's not like, okay, now I'm in tattoo mode, now I'm in this mode. It just it's you just doing different things. If that makes any sense. But I definitely feel like I learned a lot from both of them. You know, but
So,
and lots of other people. You know.
of course. So do you feel that you are the driver of your own results, or do you feel like you're just watching and you're just
Yeah,
going where you're gone?
I don't feel like I'm the driver ever.
Interesting.
Anytime I feel like I'm doing anything that works, it just comes out. But I always feel like it's a thing that I talk about to quite a few people, and it feels like the less I get involved in it, the better. You know, that when it kind of anytime it feels like my mind's getting involved or I'm trying to push it in a direction, it's gone, it's done. You know, it's like it has to just. That's why I like to work on like multiple things at a time. So like, I maybe have five things on the go, and it'll be like I'm working on that, working on that. Immediately as I get involved and I start going, oh, look at that, that needs to go in this direction. Gone. Don't touch it. Don't even look at it. You know, start working on the other thing that you're drawn to, or just walk away for a moment, sketch, do something else. So like, yeah, I really try to push. I guess it's that thing of I'm not massively into meditation and things like that. I would like to do sort of immerse myself into that a little bit more, but I've read a lot about it, and I think it's that whole thing of when thoughts coming into your head of trying to push them away and just trying to be and focus on nothing. I try and kind of have that when I'm making artwork, and that's the hardest thing. But to me, it's just like, okay, as I feel that, I'll do some sketching, do some sketching, do some sketching. Okay, working on that, work on some etching, pull back. So I kind of constantly go between the both. But it sounds like I'm pushing it in that way, but it kind of, as I get into a rhythm of it, it just sort of happens like that. I'll be working, something will come into my head, I'll sketch. I'll be working, something comes into my head and I sketch, and then it becomes this kind of rhythm of it. And then before you know it, it's like you're hearing the birds in the morning, and it's like, oh shit, the sun's coming up. But yeah, it's almost going into that weird meditative state. You know, I feel like that's my favorite they're the good nights. Some nights it's like it's just not quite clicking, but every now and then it's like something else takes over, which is, I don't know what that is, but.
So who are you then? If you're not the driver, who are you? Because like you just, what's really interesting is I imagine you had a fucking hard time with Alex if you're not big into meditating, right? Like
yeah, right.
But yeah, like who are you if you're not the driver? Who are you?
So, but that's the thing that I think about a lot. You know, like I feel like I almost have arguments with myself as I'm looking at, well, with whatever it is, you know, or you know, it does feel like there's a few different people in your. Oh, I hope other people feel this too, and it's not just me. But it does feel like there's a few different versions of me in my head. You know, I heard I can't remember who it was that described it as like, you know, the best kind of brains are brains run on committee. You know, the committee that hate each other, and it's the thing of you don't want to be around people that's constantly agreeing with you, right? You want people to question what you're doing. But I definitely, you know, even when I've had things in my life that have been shit, you know, things that have gone bad, and I feel like I observe whatever one of me is observing the other one feel the emotion in a weird way, you know.
Yeah,
it
you're
almost
watching
feels
the
like
other person.
yeah, I'm watching it, and I'm watching even my body move in weird ways and interact with people, and I feel like fuck, I'm not even doing that. I'm watching myself do it. Yeah, one of them scratches on metal. One of them does this. One of them. It really does feel like it's different versions of you, different versions of me. But yeah, it's a strange thing, isn't it, to question what are you?
Yeah, 100%. Because you know, I think, and this is kind of where I was trying to get to is like you're not defined as a tattooist, right? Like if you could never tattoo again, you don't just cease to be. In the same vein, if you could never sketch again, you don't cease to be. But it's okay. Those are the ways that I express this thing called myself. But what or who is that, right? And that's so hard to quantify without things. It's almost, you can only ever describe yourself in things.
Yeah,
Like, oh, I am a, or I am a, oh, well, I do, yeah, okay, cool. But what is that thing?
yeah,
I don't know. Like, I don't know.
exactly. And it feels so strange, even that, you know, I think in them similar ways, but then I find it weird that I've almost committed myself to this thing, you know, of why would you do that? You know, why would you spend your whole life and you just fully committed to this kind of thing that you're doing to kind of I don't know if it's like you're trying to hold on to a moment, like you're doing a sketch and then that moment's in there, you know, because I can look at a sketch from however long ago and I remember it. I remember what I was doing then. So I don't know if there's the fear of losing a memory or, you know, constantly trying to log something for whatever reason. But yeah, it does feel strange to think that maybe that's the only way you can try to communicate who you are or what you are, or even just that you are, that you actually managed to you put something down. You know, I do exist or whatever. But, well, exist or not, however you look at it.
I mean, yeah, like we could derail this and go for an hour on whether we exist or not,
Yeah.
and maybe we should. But in the thing that is apparent to me in the couple of things that you just said is one that was really interesting was you saying that you'll etch or you'll paint or whatever it is, and that's like the primary objective. But then there's always a secondary objective, which is the sketching, and it feels like, to me anyway, it feels like the route to your etching is a stream, but there's always sediment in the stream. And sketching is you grabbing a big fishnet, catching that sediment and depositing it on the side of the bank.
Yeah.
Like, since you said that, I was trying to think of a valid metaphor, and I think that's probably the closest that I've got. And it's like having that sediment, that picking of sediment to be like, yeah, we can deal with that later. Yeah, that'll be there for next time. Yeah, no, that's also still there for next time. But we need a clear stream of beautiful crystal water that's running in the straight line, right? Like the flow state. That's what they talk about, right? Flow state.
Yeah.
And the thing about existing is, the thing that came to my head when you said that is, if you ever watched the film Lucy.
Yes.
So Lucy, the ending is absolute trash, right? But I really, really loved that film. And the reason I loved that film was essentially for just one line. And that's where she's just realized she's unlocking all of her cerebral capacity. And she calls no other than Morgan Freeman. Like, who else would you call?
Of course. That's
Do you know
who
what I
you call.
mean? You know, like, if I just unlocked my cerebral capacity, the first person I'm calling is fucking Morgan Freeman.
I imagine he'd call you, right?
Right, probably.
Yeah.
And then, like, she says to him, "What do I do? Like, what do I do with all this knowledge?" And he, you know, obviously she has 99% of her cerebral capacity, but she's still a fucking idiot, because Morgan Freeman's like, "Well, isn't it obvious? You just pass it on, right? You just pass it on." And I think that in some fashion is existence. Because if we map that back to my hypothesis earlier, and we'll relate it to yours, is your method of passing it on is through etching artwork into people's skin, or into a metal sheet behind you, or into a page with some graphite, right? Somebody else, maybe their method of passing it on is dedicating their life to proving whether gravity exists or not. Somebody else may be an economic structure that they're trying to disprove or prove or improve, right? And when it comes to technology, like, the method of passing it on, like, you can garner more memories in your phone than your brain can hold. We're passing it on, right?
Yeah.
In some fashion. And, like, I think you've probably hit a nail on the head there, that existence in some form is just passing it on.
That's a brilliant way of thinking about it, because it does have the feeling of it needs to come out. You know, it's like, you know, I think it's a fairly common thing for people that it's like, I feel uncomfortable not doing it, you know, not trying to get this thing out. It's like a physical feeling as well, you know, like, shit, this needs it. I think it's a thing of, I can't remember who it was I was speaking to about it recently. It's like inhaling and exhaling, right? It's like a constant, I almost feel like information overload of seeing the world around you and having your own thoughts. And it's like this constant inhale. And at some point you've got to exhale somewhere, you know, whatever that is. Yeah, for me, it's drawing weird pictures on metal, you know, but it's got to come out somewhere, isn't it? I think so. I think it's got to.
I think so. And it sounds similar to the way that I just define truth, right? It's like, truth will always come out in some fashion, whether it be the explicit way that truth is, or whether it's in subtle, unconscious ways that life or whatever is telling you this is truth, right? This is what's coming. In the same vein that, like, you could be sat on the sofa with your missus just talking, and then your brain's like, go upstairs, etch this thing into this thing, and you're like, okay, gotta go, bye. And, you know, there's that. Again, it's almost like addiction, right? That it's like, it's clawing at you. There is something that's clawing at you to go and express something in some fashion, in some way. And I think that that's the same for everyone. Just the medium in which we express, or the medium at which we're addicted to, is different for everyone. Like, I honestly believe that everyone's addicted to something, and that's generally our method of expression. Some people, it allows them to earn a living, right? And continue on and pass on good information. Some people, it derails their life entirely, and they fall into complete chaos, and their addiction does not further their life in a way that society deems to be positive. And for you, again, you know, speaking from having spoke to you for just over 2 hours, is like, it seems like the addiction that you have has turned pretty positive in through all sense and purposes.
Yeah, but I can definitely feel that you could easily transfer this into anything.
Yes.
As you were saying,
yes,
it is a thing that easily transferable, which is both good and bad, right?
Yes, of course. And I think that goes again to the idea of self, right? It's like, okay, if the self is so adaptable, If the self is purely just a compulsion to do, then that's where that bullshit cliche of you can do whatever you want comes from. Unless you want to be Michael Jordan or Usain Bolt, like you probably can't be those people. Like you probably can't. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
If me and you want to run 100 meters in under 10 seconds, it's probably not going to happen. Like, I don't know how fast you are, but I remember doing 100 meters at like 16. It was like 30 seconds. There's no way I'm getting that.
That's what I mean. It's not happening. Yeah, exactly.
It's just fucking not happening. But you know, the theory of that, the ideal, the fantasy of that is that you can do whatever you want. Right? You can do whatever you put your mind to, and that's kind of where the underlying is. If the self is purely a compulsion to do something, and like you said, you could put that into fixing cars, whatever. You could put that into jiu-jitsu. You could put that into bodybuilding. You could put that into fucking meth if you wanted to, right? The compulsion to do is adaptable. So therefore, this takes me all the way to Nietzsche's quote, which is like, never tie yourself to an ideology. Don't worship false gods, right? And it's like, I get that. It's very, but then you're in that weird dichotomy that we spoke about before, which is you can't explain what you are without doing things. But then you also can't reach a level of mastery like you have without committing to those things almost 100% with your entire self. So if you can't give yourself to something and yet you can't worship it, like you're in that real weird state, right?
And it definitely feels like, am I completely missing something too, right? Sure. I'm giving myself to this thing, like as you're saying, you know, you can't worship it, but you got to know that maybe this is you kind of trying to turn the radio up in the car, you know, to get rid of all the other noise. It's like, well, you know, maybe the real thing is not doing this as well. That's the other side of it, right? It's just kind of, you know, but then it does feel like, what do? You go and live. I go and sit on the top of a mountain and think for 10 years. And it's like, I'm not putting that as a bad thing either. Maybe that's what you do have to fucking do. And you understand and you actually get stuff.
I think if you went to the top of a mountain, very, very quickly, that mountain would be entirely defaced with weird etchings of various different things.
Exactly. And they'll go, I don't think you got it.
but it looks cool now. Like, it fucking looks cool. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, but look at that guy's weird face, though.
Yeah, sorry. I think you were about to say something quite poignant. And by the way, the turning up the volume in the car metaphor was fantastic.
It feels like that's kind of what most things are, though, right? And you don't really notice it while you're in it, so it does kind of often feel like, am I turning the radio up here or am I not? You know?
Yeah, and there's very little way to compare, because you could argue that almost anything is turning the radio up. You know,
I think it is. Yeah. So
then what's in the silence?
I don't know. I'm always turning the radio up.
Yeah. Likewise. I mean, maybe this is where we need to drag Alex in and ask him what that meditation stuff is about.
Yeah. Right. No, but you know what though? Every now and then I work in silence, and I do the whole night in silence, and it's fucking weird.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm like, why would this be weird? Why is it weird to not have a noise on?
Yeah.
But it feels weird.
Yeah.
You know, it feels weird to sit in silence to me. So, I've always got something on.
Yeah, and I think there's two things here that I want to bring up and may add to this. Is the first one is like, when I went to LA to go and train at 10th Planet with Eddie and those guys. And one of the things I did out there was go in a float tank. You ever done a float tank?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's the weirdest shit ever, mate. It's the weirdest shit ever. So you go in and you're in this, you know, like a big room, right? Like a big-ish room. It was really high. It wasn't big. It was just like really high. And there's this big fucking black box in there that looks like a space capsule. And for about a couple of minutes, I looked at it like, I'm not sure that I want to get in that thing because it feels weird, right? But anyway, you shower, you get unchanged, and you have to go in it with no clothes on, right? That's what they say. So that's weird as well, right?
Of course.
So yeah, so again, you get in this thing and you lie down, and it's so big that if you put your arms out at a full wingspan, you don't touch the sides, and it's salt water, so you float, right? Obviously, that's why it's called the float tank. But the water is as warm as your body is, right? So when you lie there and it's pitch black, right? You shut the door and it's literally pitch black. And for the first sort of 4 or 5 minutes, my brain would just not allow me to accept and like be in the position. It just wouldn't allow me. It was like, LA's warm and it's got ice cream and shit and the beach is nice, right? And then this really, really, really strange feeling came over me that I was dead. And it's because you can't feel anything, you can't hear anything, you can't see anything, right? And even at some point, what happens is because the water is the same temperature as you could move your arms, and your brain knows you're moving your arms, but you can't feel that you're moving your arms. There feels like there's no resistance in the water. And it's the weirdest fucking thing ever. Like at one point I was so scared I had to stand up and get out just to prove that I wasn't dead.
Shit.
And like, I remember like getting up and being like, okay, I'm actually not dead. Right. Like, and then you get back in and the dead feeling comes back, and it was weird. Like, and you have 2 hours in there, and 2 hours went like,
wow,
as if it was 20 seconds. It just disappeared. So that was very strange about turning the radio off, right? But the other point about turning the radio off, I've completely forgotten. What was that? Jesus, why did I get so invested in the first point?
What was I saying?
What was I fucking saying? You were saying about Go on. Do you remember what you were saying?
What was I saying?
Yeah.
What was I saying about the radio?
You were about being in silence, right? Yeah, and that's what got me to the float lab thing. But there was something else.
But that sounds amazing to actually like completely experience a new feeling.
Yeah, it was fucking crazy.
Because how rare is that to actually completely experience that?
Yeah.
You know, but pretty much everything you do are variations on the same thing that you're used to feeling as well, right?
Yeah.
So to get something completely new.
It was so scary for like a split second, because it came gradually, right? Like it came really gradually of, you know, thinking, I can't feel much. And, okay, like that feels a bit strange. And then my brain started to be like, you can't feel anything. Okay. If you can't feel anything, surely this is what it's like to be dead, right? And then you sit with that. I probably sat with that for about 15 minutes, what sounded like, 10 seconds in my brain. And then my brain was like, you might be dead. And then, then the fear starts to kick in and everything else. But it's just, it was an extremely, extremely strange experience. In fact, I've remembered the other one. The other one, which is, to me, even more creepy than this one. It wasn't the experience I had, but it was a story of somebody telling me, it was on a podcast where a guy was talking about how he went and trekked the Mongol steppe, which is like a vast expanse of land, like hundreds of miles of land where it's just nothingness, right? And just before he went out, he was getting some supplies from some guy in a village. And the guy said to him, just beware of the quiet. And the guy was like, that's a weird thing to say. Do you want to clarify that at all? And he was like, no, you'll understand when you get there. And this guy was like, sure. So he treks into the steppe, right? And to him, he's thinking it's like wolves or some shit. He goes out into the steppe and he's in like just barren wasteland where there's just absolutely nothing. And he said night had fallen, it was pretty cold, and he decided he was going to sleep underneath his trailer. He's dragging this trailer along, by the way, right? So he gets onto this trailer and he can hear something, just like a weird buzzing sound. And at first he thought it was like flies or whatever. So he's like swatting away and there's just nothing there. And eventually he gets up from under the trailer and is like, what the fuck is this noise? Right? What the fuck is this noise? And he's looking around, and he just can't see anything. Bearing in mind it's pitch black as well, right? And then he remembers what the guy said. And he thinks about it. And he realizes that what he can hear is his body functioning. He can hear the electricity passing around his brain, passing around his stomach, passing around his body. He can hear his cells working, his stomach churning, his muscles relaxing and contracting. He can hear it. It's that quiet.
Fuck. That's a different level though, right?
Right. And to your point about turning the radio up, I wonder if you can ever turn it up. If even in the deafening depths of silence, you can still hear your fucking meat vehicle whining on.
Exactly. Yeah, because you're in this, right? You're in this thing. And it's like, fuck, if I could only not be in this for a minute to experience it. Well, even like when I say I sit in silence, I have tinnitus.
Oh, really?
So I never sat in silence, you know. So
have you had that
sometimes
forever?
you think, yeah. I had problems with my ears when I was a kid, and then it's just kind of it's stuck. So it's been a thing of like, it'd be lovely to not hear a car alarm going off constantly.
Yeah.
So it's even that, right? You're in silence, but really sometimes, well, even when I'm not thinking about that, it's there. It's that constant thing. So what silence must sound like, I can imagine is nuts.
Yeah, I mean,
know?
Yeah, of course. Like I never even thought about that. I wonder what a float tank would be like for you. I wonder if your brain would normalize the sound out, or whether it would just constantly be there.
I don't know. I'd love to do one though.
Yeah, you should. I mean, there's a couple in the UK, so you should try and do one.
Yeah,
But they're a bit.
There's one not too far from me, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, there's like two different types.
Yeah.
There's one that's like a big circle that's got like lights and shit in it. The one that I did was just a big black box, and that was it. But what was really ironic about that experience is my earplug fell out halfway through, and obviously I didn't fucking notice, right? But my ear filled with salt water, and I was deaf for a year.
Fuck.
It took that long for the salt water to come out of my fucking ears.
Holy shit! So you're not forgetting about that float lab,
float tank
thing.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a very, very strange experience. I'd love to do it again, but it was a strange experience.
It sounds like a brilliant experience. You know, like to me, I love anything. I love anything that's kind of like any emotion that gets triggered, or anything that happens, good or bad. It feels like, you know, if you have like an ultimate. It sounds fucking horrible to say, but an ultimate sad thing happened to you, and it's kind of. That's interesting as well, you know.
I think it's interesting looking back at it for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, it depends
at the time. Yeah, of course. At the time you're living in, even at the time, for me, it kind of feels like this is new. You know, I've never experienced this before, and I don't like it, but it's like I'm intrigued by it. So it's kind of just out of pure curiosity, like, oh, well, I didn't know my body could feel like that. You know, and in a similar way to the tank, as you're saying.
That's kind of really true, I think, actually. There's depths of emotion that you didn't feel existed until they exist. And that's probably the same with highs as well, right? Like there's probably the way that you all of a sudden have a high and you were like, oh Jesus, that was a good one. Like I didn't experience that before. Like I guess, I mean, tattooing probably does give you that, right? Like when you absolutely nail a tattoo.
I don't know. You know what? Like, I feel like I'm quite critical of my own work. So I'm
not shocked.
Yeah, I've never really looked at anything I've done and been like, you know, that's fucking it. I've nailed it completely. Do you know what I mean? I think I'd be terrified if I did. If I felt like that about a piece of work I'd done, I think I'd be like, shit, what next? You know, I'd be good. Yeah, I think I'd be pretty scared by that. Normally it kind of finishes and then it kind of just finishes. I'm like, cool. Yeah, sweet. You know,
Cheers.
it's like,
See ya.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's more weird when you finish tattooing someone like on a big project because you feel like, fuck, are we breaking up now? Like,
Yeah.
this is it then. See you later. Enjoy the rest of your life.
I
But
bet it does feel like that, right?
yeah, it does feel like a weird breakup. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you tattoo someone for a while, but they end up
Yeah.
coming back anyway in a couple of years or so. So you see them. But
Yeah, because that's another thing,
yeah, it's
right?
strange.
Tattoos are addictive. Getting tattoos are addictive. It's addictive. For me, anyway, it's addictive.
Yeah, it ends up being all you're seeing is empty gaps then, right? And it's like
Yeah.
kind of, endless possibilities.
And I still have so many, like, I'm still so bare like, my whole back is bare. A lot of my legs are bare. My arms are bare. My stomach is bare and all that. Like, there's lots and lots that is bare. But, I'm somebody that generally gets big projects, right? Like my whole forearm is gone, and like both of the insides of my leg, like outsides of my legs are gone. And, like I'm not somebody that gets like small pieces. I probably should be, but I'm definitely not. And, like when you, that's so strange to hear that from because you definitely feel that, like when you've spent 7 hours with a person and they're drilling into your skin and then you go, it's kind of like, oh, but I kind of don't want to go. Like, I'd like to stay just a little bit longer, if that's okay. Like, like I went, as I say, I went down to Brighton recently to get my knuckles done, and the guy there, Tom, shout out Tom, he's just so fucking kind, right? He was just so kind. It was so nice to speak to him for, I don't know, he blasted these out so quickly. It was like an hour or something. It was crazy. But like, it was just when he was like, cool, we're done. And I was like, oh no, let's carry on for a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit longer. That would be nice.
That's it. It is strange.
Yeah. And I mean, do you hang out with the people that you've tattooed? Like, if you've tattooed with them and they were like, oh, do you want to just grab a drink or something? Would you do that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm definitely, I'm not really a hangout kind of guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I do go out and, I might see your person and stuff, but not really. Do you know what I mean? I've always kind of been like, I like being at home. I like coming to, I go out for a bit of food with you or something like that. And then I'm like, cool, I'll come home now.
Yeah.
I like being at home and sort of being in my own space a little bit.
I'm so similar. Yeah. Like my job at the moment, it's allowed me to work from home, right? Because obviously I work in IT, right? And generally the way that works is you build something that can be accessed from anywhere, right? Which is kind of what we've done. But yeah, like I had to go back into the office once the other day, and I remember just being like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like,
quick, bloody hell.
Yeah, I mean, I got on the tube and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do people. I just want to be at home. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm so comfortable in my own space. And obviously I go out and train, and I'd love to go out. I like going out for food, one of my favorite things, but you wouldn't catch me in a pub or in a bar on a Friday.
No, I always feel weird about it because it's like, I don't know what I think it'd be lovely to be able to do that, but in my head I always kind of feel like, what am I doing here? Every time I'm there, do you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's almost, it depends who you're with as well, obviously, but a lot of the time if I'm out, like it's super fucking rare, but if I'm out with a lot of people, I'm always like escape route almost, like I don't want to be here. But if I'm out with like one person, that's me, perfect. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I like that, like actually talk to a person, and it's just me and you. Even when there's more, it's kind of, for me, feels a bit like you can tune out of a conversation a little bit as well, because there's other people making up that space, so it's not quite the same for me. But yeah, I like going out just for a drink. A couple of people or something works best for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's definitely, I mean, I agree. I don't like large crowds, and I don't like, I like to, like this, like for instance, this, if I was to do a podcast, like eventually when I can get people at my gaff, like what you see behind you is going to be the podcast studio, right?
Brilliant. It looks great there.
But there's only like 3 seats, really. There's only like 3 seats. So if there's more than 3 of you, I'm probably not going to do it. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, like I think one-to-one conversation is the best. 2-on-1 conversation, like a group of 3, can work beautifully well, really, really well. But when you start extrapolating out to the 4s, 5s, 6s, it's just, it loses its essence in a lot of ways, I think.
And one of the amazing things about a podcast is actually having this long form conversation with somebody that is fairly. And I feel like if there's more and more people, you're not really delving into anybody purely on time basis. You know, it's kind of, you're scratching the surface of everybody almost then, isn't it? Yeah. If there's, 3 people or there's 2 people, it makes it a little bit easier to actually have a conversation with someone properly, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, like we just commented that, it's 2 hours 20 have flown by on my clock, which is probably a little bit less for you, but like it's absolutely flown by. And I've never spoken to you in real life. I've never met you in real life.
Yeah. It's strange though, right? I said that to my girlfriend earlier. I was like, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like I spoke to you through Instagram or whatever, and then it's okay. I'm going to sit with you for a conversation. But what I call, like, I listen to lots of podcasts, and it's like it's so interesting to be able to go like, oh, I've read that guy's book. Cool, I can listen to a 3-hour conversation with him or something, and it's like, fuck, that book makes so much more sense now, or like, whatever the thing is. It's a brilliant form that we've got now, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. I really do think so. And I think that it's something, to me especially, that's ultra attractive. And that's, we didn't really disagree on anything in anything we've said, but like, if we'd have disagreed, there's literally 0 time restraint, and we could have sat here for 4 hours fleshing out our opinions. And even if we disagreed at the end of it, we could have been like, oh, okay, cool. Well, that's our opinion, I guess. Yeah.
That's what I love about meeting so many people through tattooing, is I do meet people that I disagree with, and it's like, well, you're here for all day, so we can, there's no like my point versus your point. It's let's have a conversation. Let's see how you think. And it's happened a lot of times when I'll be like, yeah, fuck, I get where you're coming from. Like, that makes way more sense than what I was saying, and it changes your opinion on it, that's ultimate, isn't it? You know, it's not healthy to be around people that are exactly the same as you all the time. It's nice to have some people around, right? That's like, I can connect with you because we're thinking the same kind of stuff, but it's good to have opposites as well, I feel like.
I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. And on that note, I'm gonna give your night back, because I understand it's nearly 7:45 and you probably need to eat and spend some time with your missus and probably start work, right? Because it's about that time. But yeah, for people that are interested, please tell them where you work, what's your Instagram, how can people get in touch with you, and all that good stuff.
So I'm at Immortal Ink in Chelmsford. My Instagram is Luke_Edgar, and my website is lukeedgarart.com. So everything through there.
Perfect. Well, I mean, I will put all the show notes and everything. I'll put all that stuff in the show notes, and on the video feed for YouTube, I'll put all that stuff as well. But honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you very much for having me.
Perfect. Well, I'll bid you a good evening, and I'll speak to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you very much, man.
All right.